You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by Nax. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
What are the two things that we need more of today? My vote is laughter and good news. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Joining us is Tank Sinatra, who has 11 million followers across social media accounts. So Tank, thanks for joining us today. Now, putting 11 million followers in perspective, the number one TV show last year had 10.7 million viewers every day. So that's very, very impressive reach. And thanks for joining us today.
No problem. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
So 11 million people follow you. Some don't. What's the best way to describe to those who don't and should what you do?
It's a good question. I think that if I were to describe what, it's the same question. What do I want to be remembered for? And what do I want people to know about me now? It's that I don't take anything too seriously except for what needs to be. And even if I do take that seriously, it's always with a wink or some kind of a silver lining. I just refuse to be bogged down by the negativity out in the world. Like, I'm a big believer in the fact that things have always been the way they are. People will say things are worse now. I think certain things are worse, but certain things are better. And 100 years ago, certain things were worse and certain things were better. So it's really try to just stay in the moment as much as possible, which is, believe it or not, why I love, creating content for social media and for the gas station TV screens, because it's just, I'm getting you in a moment of your life, and then that's it. I hope it was nice for you. That's it. That's kind of like my mentality.
We had a speaker at our NAC show a couple of years ago. One of the things he talked about is he read this quote about how this generation of kids is the worst ever and nothing's ever going to come from it. And then he asked people, when do you think this came out? People said last year, 5 years ago, 10. It was something like Socrates. It was like 2,000 years ago. So it really fits what you're just talking about. It's like, what is the world you want to live in? And there's so much joy in this world. And
oh my God,
there's a way to keep the glass half empty, glass half full, however you want to look at that. But you weren't always this guy. You were a guy that just hustling and doing your thing. How did you wind up in the area of content creation, social media?
So I've always wanted to be doing something in this realm. And when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a comedian. Then I did comedy and I found it wanting. Like, I didn't love the whole experience of driving an hour and a half to go do 5 minutes of comedy, then driving home an hour and a half. Like, it just wasn't for me. And I didn't get the charge that I got, that I believe other stand-up comedians get when they get a laugh. It just felt like nothing. I get a huge charge out of a post doing well, or people saying to me, hey, I saw that thing that you posted and it affected me in this way and I did this about it. Because then that means on a smaller scale, so you have 11 million people across all the platforms. But if one person says to me, hey, there's one guy in particular I'm thinking of that I ran into in San Francisco. Don't remember his name. I don't remember the organization. I don't remember the post, but I know that he came up to me and said, hey, you're Tank, right? You run Tank's Good News? He goes, something that you posted inspired me to start a nonprofit. That's what I do now full time. And I just wanted to say thank you. I may have done it anyway, but you were the spark in this case. And I was like, oh my God, I'm done, I think. What else am I going to do besides that?
Inspire more.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But on a case-by-case basis, for me, it's really about the individual that's on the other end of the content that I consider, think about, and not tailor to, but definitely am conscious of when I'm making what I make or posting what I post.
Now, going back to stand up, when you think about it, it's got to be a brutal business, because like if you do bad, you die. If you do well, you kill. And so you think about the what do they say? It's like, it feels like a brutal business, and
it's brutal.
A whole lot more positivity in putting something together and getting that feedback coming back. Now, there's a connection to convenience stores along the way. My understanding is you previously sold fences, and
I did, yes.
And you were good at it, so you had some free time.
Yeah.
and you parked in the 7-Eleven parking lot and started creating memes.
You did some research, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't, not to overstate it, but my whole life has revolved around convenience stores in one way or another. Like when I was working in restaurants, the fact that I could go somewhere at 2 o'clock in the morning and get a little snack before going home and going to bed, that way I didn't have to cook and whatever. Like, I think, and whatever, I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I sometimes take them for granted, but you have to remember that there's an actual human being in there at 2:30 in the morning dealing with not only you, but maybe some stuff that's undesirable because those hours are a little bit, a little bit weird. They're there at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. in the afternoon also. So when I was doing selling fence for my friend Joe at Victorian Fence, I was in 7-Eleven parking lots, Speedway, Quick Check, or Quick Mart, or whatever it's called.
Quick Check in New Jersey.
Yep. Yeah, 25% of the day. I don't know what exact amount of time, but that's where I would kind of sit and collect myself. And then when I started doing the memes, that's where it happened, really, is in a specific 7-Eleven parking lot that I'm thinking of right now.
And do good fences make good neighbors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes bad neighbors don't allow for good fences to happen, but that was my job, to try and calm people down also, because things do get a little heated over property lines,
So I would imagine being in the sales world, seeing what goes on in convenience stores. I know Steve Carell talked about, like, a lot of characters he created was when he worked at a convenience store. I think it was Store 24 in the Massachusetts area.
Really?
And he created a couple characters just based on, hey, I got some free time, I'm interacting with customers. I would imagine that part of the memes that are the types of characters or creations are all based on people, but looking at the good side of people.
Yeah, try to. Or if it's what could be perceived as negative side, it's in a positive light. So if I talk about some kind of frustrating experience or struggle or whatever, it's always in the attempt to, again, make the person on the other side of that screen feel seen. Because memes are like, they're very rarely laugh out loud funny. It's more of like oh, I get this. I see myself in this. I'm going to like this post. Videos are a little different, but yeah, you're just trying to connect with people for a millisecond in their day while they're scrolling through on their lunch break or in between, Little League practices or work or whatever. And you only get a second with them. Instagram has said publicly, you get 1 second to convince people to watch 3 seconds of something you're doing. That's how tight of a timeline we're on,
And if you linger on something for that 1 second, all of a sudden
Yep.
they recognize that you're really into that, which is why I am flooded with panda videos right now.
I was going to say, next thing you know, you're watching lumberjack competition videos until 3 a.m.
Yeah. A lot
You
of
don't even know you love them.
Yeah, and pandas, I don't know why they're not extinct, given what they do when they climb into trees and fall from them and then roll around, and that's their day.
Yeah, of the bears, they're the least capable,
Yeah, but again, we'll try to stick more on the good news.
I'm not trying to offend the panda community, but I mean,
Yeah, we'll get
grizzly.
some panda letters here. It's
Yeah.
they don't write very well, but you can usually tell us from them.
Yeah, scratching and bamboo and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about convenience stores earlier. Is it any memes or any things that you've passed along over the years that have that convenience store angle that's just kind of funny to think about?
I must have, Jeff. So to say no would be inaccurate and probably dishonest, but to say yes, I feel like I have to come up with an example, and I can't. But I've made thousands of memes over the years, and like I said, what I figured out was this happened for me all pretty late in comparison to some other people. So I was like 35, 36 when this all kind of started to get rolling. And one thing that I discovered unintentionally, which comedians know and artists know and any kind of creative type knows, you have to be painfully aware of your surroundings at all times if you want to glean lessons or content from it. So with the amount of time that I spent in convenience stores, I mean, there has to be stuff sprinkled in there. because I made sure I already had kids at that point and a job and marriage and all that. And I'm so lucky that it didn't happen when I was 22, because then what I would have done, probably, who knows, maybe not, would be, just get addicted to the likes, lock myself in a basement, paint myself into a creative corner. And before you know it, all of a sudden I'm making memes about memes. And I'm like so removed from life that I can't even comment on it anymore. So I'm very, very careful of that.
Well, you talked about just the 1 or 2 seconds to really change somebody's life, make them feel more positive. And one of the things we talk about in our industry, 152,000 convenience stores. Each one gets a little bit more than 1,000 customers a day. So you're looking at 160 million people that you can touch on a daily basis emotionally. And the power that our industry has to make a more positive climate. And I think that's really key to what you do. You had memes, you still have memes, and they're awesome. But now you're moving more into the positivity and the whole good news, which I think is a really good place for us to intersect and say, hey, let's take some of this good news and let's share it. And we know GSTV, Gas Station TV, is using you on gas pumps, and you're talking about tens of millions of people that get to see Tank's good news on a weekly basis. So
it's crazy.
It's a really important way. We have a really important touch point to see how we can kind of change that narrative in this country and the world. In how do we make people feel on a daily basis?
Yeah. I mean, you can only do so much, but if the cards lay out right and somebody, I mean, the chances of somebody, this is how I stay sane, by the way, on the internet. Because I used to get really jammed up if someone said something not nice about me, or they didn't like what I posted, or they said it was not funny. And I mean, out of 11 million people, or let's just say 1 million people, what are the chances someone somewhere is having a bad day and they happen to scroll past my post and they didn't even read it? They don't know what it's about. They just saw it and went, no, I'm going to take out my day on this person. And they're not even going to see it. So who cares? It's kind of like yelling into a void. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I do see it, but I don't take it personally anymore, because I know that people are living their lives and going about their day, which is why with the Gas Station TV thing, they're kind of there. They're like a little bit stuck, So if they see me, great. If they pay attention, great. But the chance, I feel like, is a lot higher than on social media to get somebody's attention and just say, hey, I know this Tuesday in particular is not great, but here's something that happened that may change your day. It may not, but I'm going to err on the side of trying to be positive here, because nobody ever had their day changed positively by hearing something bad. Just never. It's not a possibility. You're not always going to brighten somebody's day, but I'm going to take my chances with positivity and good news every day.
Yeah, I saw one of the recent videos, and I can't remember the exact circumstances, but it stuck with me. It's like, this is a cool story that you shared. And it was a kid. I think it was like a 12-year-old kid. And he saved somebody from a burning fire. And then later on in the day, saved somebody doing something else. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think he saved somebody from a fire and then gave CPR to somebody, if I'm not mistaken. I know the story you're talking about. The details are not in my brain. But at this point.
Details weren't important. What it did was it kind of created a pathway, neurons in my brain, where it's like, wow, there are people like this in the world. There are circumstances like this in the world. And okay, there's a little traffic on the road today, but let's just think about all these amazing things that are going on out there.
There's so many stories. And if, like, let's say that, on the off chance there was a story that we did about a Lyft driver delivering one of her clients' babies on the road, right? So ideally, because when I drive, I'm in Long Island, you know what I mean? I'm on the road. I sit in traffic and I don't love it. But two things. One, I was told a long time ago, if you find yourself getting frustrated that you're in traffic, you have to realize you're not in traffic, you are traffic. So at least own some of it. And two, if I see somebody doing something stupid on the road, I've always kind of felt this way, but recently, maybe about a year ago, my son had a very bad shellfish allergy reaction. Our first time, we didn't know about it, and man, it felt like every second was make or break. So I was driving crazy with my family in the car because I was trying to get to the hospital. So if I see somebody do something stupid, I don't always assume that that's their exact thing, but I figure there's got to be a reason they're doing that. And that's because, so if someone sees a story about a Lyft driver delivering a baby and they're sitting in traffic, maybe they say, maybe it's not because people are stupid and I hate people and people are trying to ruin my day by driving bad on Long Island, which to take it that personally is insane. Maybe it's something else. And that little bit of a crack in the door for positivity is really all you need. Like you just said, you felt a different way one time. Maybe you went back to feeling negative here and there, but at least you know now that it's possible to, and not you in particular,
Right.
just in general, like even if they don't hear what the story is, when it flashes and it says Tank's Good News, they may go, oh, that's so cool. There's like a thing dedicated to good news. And that does a little something for them. So we try and hit on as many angles as we can.
And thinking one of the ways that I've heard you described is the Michael Jordan of memes. Now, here I am. I'm coming out of the G League. I'm just coming up, and I have a chance to talk to Michael Jordan. What kind of advice would you give somebody? Convenience stores, could be anybody, whether you're a business, whether you're a person. And how do you look at memes are essentially telling a story, but and you had talked about, how they connect and just make you feel differently. But what is any advice that you would give or guardrails in how somebody can do on a G League level what Michael Jordan does?
So there is, it's funny you bring up basketball because there's this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know who that is, but he said something a long time ago about if you love basketball, but you're 5'5" and you can't jump and you really aren't that good, but you love it so much that you really want to make it a part of who you are, you're not going to go to the NBA, but you can coach a local, youth team if that makes you feel good. Like you're still in the game. So I think that when people project what they want to happen, first of all, I ask people all the time when somebody who I really look up to and admire and have my entire life was like, how do I get more followers? And I was like, why do you want more followers? And he was like, I don't know. I actually don't know. He's got nothing to sell. He's not, you know what I mean? He's not doing anything. He's already set. So I would just ask a couple of questions of yourself. Why am I trying to do this? What do I hope to come from it? And then once you have those answers, those questions answered, then you can get into the content and the approach. But the number one thing that I tell people when they're trying to get started at any kind of content creation is just harshly to say, get over yourself. Like you're going to make a video. It's not going to be great. It might be bad, actually. You may post it and nobody sees it, or even worse, you post a bad video and 20 million people see it. Like, what do you want to happen here? So start small and don't stop. Like, do not stop. I can't tell you how many times I've been ready to be done, and then I make something and it goes absolutely bananas, and I'm like, all right, you got me. Every time I try to get out, they pull me right back in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game you can't escape if you're into it like I am. But I have a little bit of a problem, I think, where I had a blog in 2003, another one in 2004, a video blog in 2009, a website in 2012. I was chipping away at this, trying to figure out what the right route was for me to take. And then Instagram presented itself, and that happened to work. But for you, it might not be that. It might be long form YouTube videos, or it might be TikTok because you're a video first person. I like to mix in still images and videos, so Instagram is where I live. But you just got to figure out what you're trying to do and who you're trying to reach and what you hope to happen. So once those questions are answered, then you can begin the journey.
And I imagine it's also some self-reflection, like, who am I? because I'm not going to succeed if I'm trying to be tank.
That's the hardest question to answer.
And
who am I? Like, what do I have to say? Why am I? And people will get into, I'm sorry to cut you off, but people will say like, why is what I have to say important? It might not be, but you got to find out. You got to put yourself out there and see because there's no such thing as a niche anymore. You niche down into, like I said, lumberjack competition videos. I'm not kidding. Like I was on TikTok one day and I was getting served all these lumberjack competition videos every third video or so. And I was like, did they know that I liked this before I did? But these videos have millions and millions of views. There's, axe wielding superstars out there. It's wild. It's a very, very interesting time to be alive.
And there's a lot of ways to communicate and kind of wrap all of this up. We talked about fences earlier. One of the things that fences do is they keep out the uninvited and the unwanted, which is really, if you think about it, the approach that you're doing now with Tank's Good News. And there's a lot of uninvited, unwanted, bad news, negativity out there. So you're doing that content equivalent of fences by yes, let's have some fun. And yes, you can have some things that are not always positive, but certainly not toxic, not negative.
Yeah.
And that's really, I guess, the approach that if more of us take that, probably in a better place, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, the production team that I work with, Brandon and Mike, they're phenomenal. So they work with me. They also work with every other person on GSTV. They do a lot of ads and spots for NACS, I believe. And they're very good at like taking the message and putting it across in a way that is easy to digest and kind of tailor-made for the person that they're making it for. But this stuff, this content that comes across my brain in whatever way it does, I have a bunch of different sources. I believe, and this, people may argue this, and you can, I don't care. I'm not going to argue with you about it. This is what I believe. Not you, but other people. I think life is 10% joyful, unbelievable. Watching your kid graduate from school, having a kid, graduating yourself, getting a promotion, 10% tragedy, loss, disappointment, all that. And then the 80% in the middle has everything to do with how you perceive it. So if your car starts in the morning and you go, oh, nice, my car started, because you remember a time like me where you weren't sure if your car was going to start in the morning, then you're living a very different life than somebody who only gets mad when something goes wrong. If you get happy when stuff goes right, you will find that you are happy way more of the time than when things go slightly well or slightly wrong. A lot more stuff goes well than goes wrong in this life, but it's hard to celebrate every little win because we get wrapped up in life. But I make it a point to try and just be glad I made it home at night from wherever I was coming from. Be glad I woke up in the morning. These are all neutral experiences, but that 80% is all you. You're going to create the life you're living.
Yeah, I know I said that I was wrapping it up, but I'm going to be like Columbo. One more thing. Because you just kind of hit a point there. There was the TV show CBS Sunday Morning. And maybe 20 years ago, they had a feature where I can't remember the guy's name, but he said everybody has a story to tell. And this relates to what you're talking about with positivity and how do you create your brand. But they would go in a room and they would throw a dart at a map. Wherever that dart landed, they would go to that town and they would pick up the phone book and they would flip through the phone book at random and they would point at somebody and they would go visit that person and film it. And the goal was, their concept was, everyone has a story to tell. Yeah. And it was amazing, these stories that you had. And you think, oh, well, I don't have anything to say. And then they dove in a little deeper and it was just really beautiful to hear how everybody gets along in this world and finds their way, finds struggles, finds joy. And there's a way to tell your story, and you do it exceptional. That's an example for anybody else. You do it exceptionally well, So if people want to find out and they're saying, hey, I need more tank in my life, how do they get more tank in their life?
Go fill up your gas station at one of, no, I'm just kidding. I don't even know how many gas stations there are. But yeah, when you're pumping gas, keep your eyes peeled because that is a little, you probably don't have your phone on you. You're looking for something to do. Look at the screen. I'll see you there. Or on Instagram at Tank Sinatra. It's tank.sinatra, at Tank's Good News. At Influencers in the Wild is another page of mine that's just kind of like a big satirization of humanity in general. And then I have a true crime podcast that I started with a friend of mine that is also me kind of trying to like, because these cases are so devastating, I try and be funny, never at like the expense of the victim, especially, usually not even anyone in the case. It's usually me. But bringing light where there's darkness or bringing levity where there's gravity, that's kind of like, I guess my superpower is being able to look at something that's not perceived well at all and going, yeah, but if you look at like this right here, this way in this moment, that's all right. That's okay.
So basically fill up your tank with tank.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to
steal that one.
Steal that.
So the other thing is just in thanking you, also a recent episode of Filling Up Your Tank with Tank on Good News. You highlighted what NAC's Foundation does with 24/7 Day.
Oh my God, yeah.
We recognize the heroes in communities on July 24th and every other day. And it's just our way of saying what you were saying in the beginning. At 2 a.m, there are second and third shift folks that need a fresh cup of coffee, need something else. And that's what we recognize in those days. So we really appreciate the shout out from you to your audience in just making this world a little better place. So thanks for the shout out on 24/7 Day. Thank you for what you do every other day. And we look forward to much more from Tank, whether you're filling up your tank at the gas station or anywhere else. So
filling up your spiritual tank on Instagram.
Absolutely. Keep it as full as you can. So thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And just real quick on the 24/7 thing. I have so many friends that are firefighters and police officers and EMS and all that stuff, volunteer, professional. I don't want to say I could never. I probably could if I had to, but I don't. And I'm so glad there are people out there that do. And when I was talking to Brandon before we did this, I said to him, like, the people who are there for those people are also kind of heroes. And like you said, everyone has a story. The guy there at 3 a.m. doing it for whatever reason he's doing it, to provide for his family, to go, to pay for school or whatever he's doing. I would like to hear what those people are up to. Why are they doing what they're doing? And how are they taking that time and making the most of it? But yeah, 24/7, those first responders, I'll be excited to see what they make of it. You might have a riot on your hands if you run out of taquitos, but I'm sure you guys will figure that out.
We'll figure out the good riots. And if you have a good story to tell, send it to us. We'll share it with you, and you can decide how you may or may not want to share it. But
very good.
More good stories we have in life, the better off we'll all be. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.